View their stunning transformations online at the number 4everremodeling.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Welcome back to Chicago's Morning Answer with Jeannie Ives, Amy Jacobson. We're filling in for Dan today. He will be back tomorrow, and I'm so glad we're here. And also to promote our show, The Real Story, which is from 11 to noon, Monday through Friday, right here on these very airwaves. So thank you so much. We've had quite the busy day, quite an exciting array of guests, that's for sure. And we've had a lot of information. We will bring you the latest information later about the closure of the El Paso airport for 10 days, which is, they're very tight-lipped. Everyone is on why they're doing it. They're just saying that it's a security measure. So there's some intel of some threat.
Something going on.
Because that's a pretty big airport. It's right there on the border. And there's not like an airport nearby that you can divert to. You know, if Chicago here was shut down, you can go to Milwaukee or Cedar Rapids, Iowa, or St. Louis. But El Paso, you're kind of in the middle of nowhere. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Well, we are having Brandon Gill on in the next half hour, and he is a congressman from Texas. I reached out to his organization, his people, and they said, look, we're not going to talk about it because we really don't know anything else either. So certainly this is a tight-lipped situation, and they are not, and probably he knows something, I don't know, maybe he doesn't, but they're not revealing what's going on in El Paso. But
wow.
So,
all right. Well, thank you for telling. And that's an honest answer.
That's an honest answer,
and that's what we appreciate.
Like, which is fine because we have a whole lot more to talk about with Brandon Gill, and looking forward to that. But in the meantime, you know, this is actually really important breaking news, and that's that Trump is going to repeal the landmark climate finding, which is a huge regulatory rollback. I got this from the Committee to Unleash Prosperity yesterday. They wrote that the 2009 so-called endangerment finding was always a farce, a frontal assault against economic progress, energy usage, and higher living standards. It was a regressive tax hitting poor households the hardest. The ruling was completely unscientific, as there is no evidence that carbon dioxide is a pollutant or a danger to human health the way lead or sulfur make people sick. Virtually all the major climate-related crises on the planet happened centuries before fossil fuels were ever burned. Now, this is a really important thing. I think it's going to lead to lower costs for your vehicles. There's certainly going to be impacts at the state level, and I've got something to share on that as well. But here to give us more context on this is Steve Milloy. He's a recognized leader in the fight against junk science with more than 33 years of experience, and it's credited with popularizing the term junk science. He's the founder and publisher of junkscience.com and an environmental and public health consultant, and he joins us right now. Mr. Milloy, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, good morning, Jeannie and Amy. Thanks for having me.
So what about this landmark ruling that does now say that CO2 is not a pollutant that we should be concerned about? What's going to be the impact, and, you know, how did we get to this point finally?
Well, so President Trump is trying to end the climate hoax. Climate hoax began about 36 years ago. NASA scientist James Hansen famously testified on a very hot day in Washington, D.C., and that launched the climate alarmism. And about halfway through 2009, the Obama EPA issued this rule saying that carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases were a threat to public health and welfare. That's called the endangerment finding. And since that time, EPA has been regulating greenhouse gases. And part of the effect of that was to destroy half the U.S. coal industry. It is also behind all the EV mandates that the Biden administration tried to pass, California tried to pass. So it's had a lot of devastating effects. The car companies have lost tens of billions of dollars over the last few years on EVs, for example. And so President Trump tomorrow is going to announce that he's reversing the Obama EPA's 2009 ruling. And that's a great move. People like me have been pushing for this since the endangerment finding first came out in 2009, because climate alarmism has always been junk science. There's just no evidence that emissions of carbon dioxide are harming the planet, affecting the weather, affecting the climate. the carbon dioxide has been great for agriculture that feeds us. We have 8 billion people on the planet. We need the food. So this is huge, but it's not the end of the story. There's going to be a lot of litigation. There was a Supreme Court decision that helped the Obama administration get started. There has been a Supreme Court decision since that's going to support President Trump's rollback of the endangerment finding. So we're just going to have to see how it plays out.
Well, in Illinois, I got to tell you, this isn't going to be any change for Illinoisans because we've got Governor Pritzker here, who is intent on shutting down all fossil fuels by 2045. All coal's going to go away. Natural gas plants are going to go away. This is a fantasy, by the way. He can't actually produce enough energy if he does go down this route. But we've also had problems with, the idea that they want to do carbon sequestration. These are very expensive projects for nothing. This is actual junk science. And then I got to tell you one more thing. Just coming out is Senate Bill 2981, which would create in Illinois the Climate Change Superfund, financed by payments from entities the state deems responsible for climate change. Illinoisans are in a trick box if we don't get rid of Pritzker because they are doubling down on stuff that obviously everybody knows is a hoax.
Yeah, you have mentioned so many things there. With all the data centers and all the reindustrialization of America that we need, wind and solar just can't do it. They're more expensive. They have they produce no environmental benefits. That they're not changing the weather. The climate is total junk. The Climate Superfund law, of course, carbon dioxide is not harming anything. So why penalize anybody? And all that would do anyway is just make energy cost more, right? This notion of net zero by 2040, 2045, 2050, whenever. Net zero is never happening. Fossil fuels, especially coal and natural gas. Oil and natural gas. Well, coal too. They're essential for our standard of living and survival. If we didn't have fossil fuels, billions of us would die. Before fossil fuels, there were fewer than 1 billion people on the planet. Fossil fuels have produced 8 billion people on the planet living longer, healthier, wealthier, freer lives than ever before. So people like Pritzker is out of their minds.
Well, what about, we have all these data centers popping up. We have one right next to us. How are we going to, where's the energy going to come from to keep that place up and running?
Well, right. And the reason that electricity prices have skyrocketed over the last 10, 15 years is because, the Greens have shut down coal plants, they've shut down gas plants, they've stuck us with wind and solar, which can't supply the electricity need. Now, fortunately, for those 10, 15 years, electricity demand was sort of constant, but now it's skyrocketing because we have all the data centers have huge electricity requirements. We're trying to reindustrialize. That's going to require more energy. And so we're in a squeeze now because we only produce so much energy, not enough. And someone's got to pay the freight. That's going to be consumers.
Well, let's talk about something that's actually harmful to folks, and this is really important for us at the local level. Look, it's been known for years that Chicago is number one in the nation for the number of lead service lines that they still have in Chicago that they have not replaced. Over 400,000 lead service lines, and they are on they think that they're going to make progress on this because by 2076, 50 years from now, they're going to be replaced. But we know for a fact that it's not junk science, that lead is very harmful to people. And instead of focusing our resources on replacing these lead service lines, they are doubling down on green energy scams in the state. And I just this is Illinois.
Well, I agree with you and disagree with you. I agree with you that, we have real environmental problems out there. And instead of addressing those, we're wasting it on wind and solar. Okay. The lead service lines, lead is dangerous. Kids that traditionally or historically eat lead paint chips, very bad for you. Obviously, smuggling lead jewelry, very bad. Lead in drinking water, not so much. We all grew up with much higher levels of blood lead than kids do today. Didn't hurt us. It's poison that's the problem, not the sort of low level. In toxicology, it's the dose that makes the poison. But that's
Well, I don't know. I used to eat paint chips for a snack in Mount Prospect growing up. When you get hungry, just take something off the windowsill.
Yeah, but that was the problem.
Yeah, but what data do you have to back up that lead in the water is not as toxic as we think?
because there's not a single study that shows anyone's ever been harmed by having the low levels of lead that are in drinking water.
Okay.
Okay, and the CDC has determined that, if you have any lead in your blood, you've been poisoned. Of course, that's not true. I can show you what our lead levels were growing up, much, much higher than today, and we were fine.
Well, this is great. I'm glad that you're here debunking some of this stuff, but at the same time, I think it's a higher priority to replace those than it is to put in wind, solar, and batteries in Illinois.
Yeah, of course, but I mean, we do have real problems.
Yes,
and,
we do.
My whole thing, look, if you want to take environmental action, let's just make sure that the science is right, or that even if you want to do it despite the science, that everyone knows that you're doing it despite the science. That's all I'm about.
Okay, hey, last question before we let you go. You just recently wrote 20 years after an inconvenient truth, Al Gore's alarmist global warming movie has, obviously been debunked completely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Al Gore really got climate idiocy going in the mid-2000s with An Inconvenient Truth. I was able to watch the movie in a special Al Gore, a personal presentation in January 2006. Afterwards, I went up and said, "Hey, Al, let's have a debate on this." And at first he was interested, but then his staff, said, "No, we're not going to do that." And of course, Al Gore and all climate alarmists have ducked debate in the last 20 years. And of course, everything they've been pushing has been a hoax. So, Al Gore's movie, a year after it came out, a British judge ruled that it could not be shown in UK schools without a warning label because it had so many errors in it.
Well, he made his living and his livelihood off of it. I mean, the documentary initially grossed $50 million in theaters, and that was his whole. I mean, they could never debunk it because then he'd look like a fraud and maybe have to give some of that money back.
He is a fraud, and he has a net worth of $300 million now from the climate hoax. It's crazy. Yeah, he's a nut job. I mean, he says that global warming is like 600,000 atomic bombs going off in the atmosphere every day. So since he's been saying that, 2.5 billion atomic bombs have gone off in the atmosphere, and we're still here and doing great.
And he scared so many school kids.
Well, no, my sister actually fought this in her school in Vermillion, South Dakota. They were showing.
Of course she did, Jeannie.
Yeah, so of course. Yes. But they were showing this to the middle schooler, Inconvenient Truth. She's like, no, you need to show also this movie. And I forgot the name of the counterpoint movie to Al Gore's, but she's like, you're not going to present this to kids. It's false.
And she was a middle schooler when she did that?
Her kids were in middle school, and she did that. She's like, you're not watching this.
Yeah, so the counter movie was, at the time, Great Global Warming Swindle.
Yes.
And I ultimately made Al Gore debate because I took clips from The Inconvenient Truth, juxtaposed them from clips from the Great Global Warming Swindle. So he debated whether he liked it or not.
Oh, that's great.
Well, we'll leave it right there. Steve Milloy, we're thankful for what you do, debunking all this stuff. Junkscience.com is where you can find out more from him.
Yep, and he joined us on AM 560, The Answer.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Stay tuned for a special message from Angel Dad Joe Abraham about his daughter Katie.